Good morning, this is Southend TV. My name is Tracy Chapman and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Ron Woodley, who's standing as an independent candidate for the next general election. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Tracy.
I understand you're standing in Rochford and Southend East.
I am.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection with Southend?
Okay, well, I was transferred down here from Hackney with Leslie Products, Matchbox Toys, into the Rochford factory back in 1982. So I worked there for 7 years until the rest of the factory moved out to Hong Kong, China. And of course I moved down into Southend in 1985 and still living in the same house as I did 32 years ago.
And you're married, you have a family?
Married, I have a daughter. I'm very proud of my daughter. She's an EasyJet pilot, 23 years old, got a first in a university degree. And she's also a flying instructor, so she's done well in her short life.
Oh, that's good to know. Your manifesto, I presume you've already put your manifesto together. We haven't had those from the big parties yet, but on your own you can say whatever you want. What would you like to tell the people of Southend?
Well, I think it's true, because you're an individual, it's your manifesto, it's your policies around the local issues, because other candidates have to follow the central party manifestos. So whether they agree with them or not, they have to follow them. I don't need to do that. As an independent, I'm here to break the mould. I've broken that in Southend-on-Sea, becoming an independent councillor in 2007. People used to say to me, as an independent, you're not going to achieve anything. Well, I proved them wrong. Thought Ward became all independent. We had an independent-led administration, as me as leader, and I'm the first independent leader of Southend Council and the first of a unitary council in the country.
So what will your policies be if you are able to take Southend?
Well, I think the major one is we need to invest into our hospital and our A&E department. There's no way as Southend and Rochford, with Castle Point, our aspiration to become a city in the future. How can we have a hospital that's going to be a downgraded A&E department? We need to invest in our hospital, invest in our A&E, and I've got visions for that going forward, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not going to be alive in 10, 15, 20 years probably, but I do need to make sure that Southend-on-Sea, Rochford, Castle Point, those areas are supported in the medical side that we need it. And of course we need to spend the money on adult social care.
So how would you influence politicians from other parties? Because it's very difficult as an independent to guarantee anything for Southend, really.
Well, it isn't. You know, having said that, as an independent, our two local MPs would not discuss with me for 2 years any policies or visions going forward on Southend-on-Sea. That's not my way of representing people. That's them representing their party. And because I was not, if you like, a Conservative leader of the council, refused to discuss anything. What I then did then was bypass them, went straight to central government, talking to ministers, talking to government officials about the visions and ideas I've got for Southend-on-Sea, Rochford and the surrounding area. And part of that is investment. And there's ways of investing in the town without borrowing money, and we have to get that over quite sensibly. I'm talking about many hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds. It's floating around. We need to grab hold of that and spend it wisely.
But it's difficult enough for a backbencher to have their views come across with government, because although they may be part of the party that's in power, they're not in government. It's only the ministers really that have those kinds of powers. How will you be able to encourage a very senior politician to invest that kind of money in Southend? It's very, very difficult now. We all know the issues around the budgets. How will you encourage them to spend their money in Southend as opposed to somewhere up north or somewhere in Wales?
Well, I think some places, if we talk about the Northern Powerhouse, George Osborne was saying that over the last Parliament, the east of England contributes a net gain to the Treasury purse. Northern England takes it away. If we get the right infrastructure, as we should have, and everything else, we will put more and more money back into the Treasury, and therefore the government will gain out of that. you probably know me, you might not know me, but I'm very passionate about what I believe in, and I do achieve. They won't hear the worst of me, or they will get the worst of me, because I will go up, and I'll be going, have you got that yet? I'm Ron Woodley, I'm from Southend, Rochford and Southend East. Now I want to talk to you. And I will go back the next day, we haven't spoken yet. And I go back the next day and say, you haven't spoken yet. I will be a pain in their butts because I believe passionately about using resources that this country's got that we fail to use and we spend unwisely when I want to spend it wisely.
But you'll need to make alliances as well to do that. Who will you align yourself with?
I will support whoever's in government, providing they support Rochford and Southend East. That's what I'm there for, and I will support the government on that basis. But it will be on a vote-by-vote basis, not universally putting your hand up because you're part of a political party.
You must have other policies. I know the hospital is a very, very hot topic here in Southend and for Rochford and Castle Point as well. What about schools and policies for young people?
Well, education is key. When I was leader of the council, I started to get the businesses and the colleges working together to say, what skills do we need to be training our young people in? Before, it was the colleges sending out people trained, and the businesses saying, but we don't want those trained people in that subject, we want them in this or wanted them that. What I started was having the college and the businesses working together and saying, let's get that right, let's understand what skill shortage we've got, what we need to come out of colleges, and that is happening as we are now speaking. The other thing is I started holiday school program up for 100 young people each week to work in prospects in the morning, so they have breakfast and they have lunch, and in between that they have training on English, arithmetic and 11+ training. What's the point of Southend having 4 grammar schools if we're teaching children from London? We all see them on the trains, we all see the buses coming in. What are we doing that? It should be for local people. When I say local people, that's Rochford, that is Castle Point, that is Rayleigh and Southend. London, you've done away with grammar schools. Teach your children there. We get no financial benefit for teaching children from London in our grammar schools because they go back to where they live, they go to university from where they live, they don't come back to Southend. Why are we doing it? It's crazy. And of course we all need to also make sure that our comprehensive schools and other schools, our faith schools, are up to standard. And while I was leader, I think we went up to 82% of our schools were good or outstanding, and that was a fantastic achievement.
That is a fantastic achievement, but most of what you're talking to me about, again, is national policy, and it's about how you can influence that national policy in the direction that you want it to go, because these schools are now academies and they have their own criteria for admittance. How do you affect that?
Well, you have to do it by, if you like, educating the educationists. Southend High for Boys, for instance, now take 80% of local children into their school against Westcliff and the others that 70% are from outside the borough or outside the area, and only 30% of local children. We need to educate. They need to understand that if they continue the way they are, then we're not going to get the benefit of their education, but other parts of the country will. And they moan about funding. We haven't got enough money. Well, if they take children from the free school meals situation, more of those children, of course they get the funding, extra funding because of that. They've got to learn, and then we need to be educated because they go one way only. We need to change their direction.
But there's also an issue with children travelling from Southend to other parts of the county for their education. Would that policy not affect those parents that have chosen perhaps to send their children to Chelmsford?
Well, no.
Or to Rochford even?
Well, and as I said, local children, I believe, is including Rochford, is including Rayleigh, is including Castle Point. We need to make sure that our schools in those areas can teach children and vice versa. Residents do not recognise boundaries. It's politicians and councils that recognise boundaries. Why have boundaries? I would like to see Southend, Rochford, Castle Point, Rayleigh as a city in the future, a city that's run by a mayoralty, that you take away all these sort of structures of local government which cost money. We need to put that money back into the local community and work on that basis.
The city status is one that right across the political spectrum people are very keen on for Southend. What do you think the city status would do for Southend?
If it's done correctly, it will generate wealth for the area, and I mean done correctly. You know, you'd look at the devolution of powers from central government. Well, that's devolved down to the lowest common denominator, and that should be your local councils or your parish councils. By having it devolved down to the county councils, you're just moving the money from there to there. And we all know about county councils. Do they know the local issues about potholes, turning the street lights off, the policing, the vandalism that takes place? They don't, because they're too central. We've got to bring the resources, we've got to bring the knowledge back locally and get it done that way.
And do you think that the city status would allow you to do that? I'm just interested because I keep hearing city status, but I still haven't had any clarification of what it would do for Southend. I understand there's ambition with it, but what exactly would it do for the people of Southend?
It would bring money in, no doubt about it. It would mean that you've got control over your skills factor, your education factor, the highways, the hospital, because I believe the hospital needs to come out of centralisation again, or national health out of the centralisation of central government and come locally. If you get control of all the issues and the concerns that residents have, then you can invest money. I'll give you an example of adult social care. At the moment, we have 4,500 residents in the council homes and another 1,500 in sheltered housing. Sheltered housing, they pay the rent, it goes into the organisation that runs that, and that's £6.1 million. That's 9% roughly of Southend's council tax base. Now, that's the first stage of people saying, I want to be looked after, either as sheltered and then into adult social care. Well, instead of raising taxes to do that, well, we can say that £6.1 million can go into adult social care. So you're moving money about. If you then say for the 4,500 council homes to the tenants, we'll exchange your rent for a mortgage. So every year you will own 4 or 5% of your own home. Then going forward, they will have an asset, 20, 25 years, they will own their own home. If they need adult social care, they will have an asset to help fund their adult social care. That'll also mean that we don't have to manage those homes, and it costs us £27 million to do it. We will then get £20 million of revenue back into the council. Take that, that's 40-something million pounds that we can spend on new housing for local people, we can spend on infrastructure, and we can spend on our health and adult social care. That's £1 billion over the next 20, 25 years.
You're very constricted in Southend because of the land situation. There isn't very much available for building. There's already a very large business park going up at the airport. I think they're talking about somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 jobs there.
It's 7,500 jobs,
7,500.
and I signed the contracts. Yes.
And that's going to bring in, presumably, an awful lot more people who want to live in the area. How are you going to make that land available for new builds?
Well, you see,
You can't even find room to put a park and ride.
Well, at the moment, I got the regeneration of Victoria Avenue underway by threatening the owners of those buildings that if they didn't do it, I would compulsory purchase them and move forward. And that scared the living daylights out of them, and they did it. I've been talking to the chairman of the football club while I was leader of the council, and we still meet every couple of months for breakfast to discuss the way things are going. And we've talked about what is going to be required in terms of infrastructure around Fossett's Way and how we can get that traffic out in the short term. When I talk short term, I'm talking about 5, 10, 15 years. Longer term, we need to make sure, and it comes back to the NHS, it comes back to the hospital, it comes back to the funding that we can manipulate around. We need to build a brand new hospital just outside the boundaries, and including within Rochford, Rayleigh and Castle Point and Southend, with the right infrastructure, with all the right modern technical equipment going. Encourage the doctors, the consultants, the nurses, the technicians to come and work in a brand new hospital. Then we can then redevelop the current hospital site. We have got plans for the SCAP, redevelopment of the town centre. We've got the Queensway site, redevelopment of the Queensway site. And of course we've got the plaza and the old gasworks site. All coming through, all happening. Give us the houses we need. Give us the education we need, give us the infrastructure we need, because building creates revenue, which creates us the opportunity to do things we want for people of Rochford, Southend East.
The problem is that the land just isn't available for housing. You're talking about the flats that are going up along Victoria Avenue. Great if you're single, or if you're a young married couple, or even an older married couple like me. Not so good if you've got young children. There is no room really in Southend to build houses. You would have to go into Rochford to look for that land. Well, we know that Rochford prides itself on being 9/10 greenbelt and being the green lung for the whole of the south of Essex. How do you feel that you will be able to encourage Rochford or Southend to build those houses for you? Because there's no room in Southend for them.
Initially, we got till 2030. There's sufficient land in Southend to build the homes.
Within the border?
Within the border, within Southend, in the border, to satisfy the needs of a growing population till 2030. If we plan correctly, and Rochford, Southend, Castle Point, Rayleigh generate and become that city of the future, then we can work together to say sensibly, where do we want to build? Where do we get the infrastructure? If we build that hospital in a central situation in amongst those buildings, those communities, then we can then move maybe a road out to the A130, the A12 to take us and give us the opportunity to move our traffic out. What causes congestion, what causes the environment in terms of health, smoke, that is this congestion where we keep moving and stopping vehicles. We need them to flow properly, and having an inner ring road initially and then an outer ring road in the long term will help that flow. So as the population grows, so our infrastructure should grow.
Ron, most of your plan seems to involve Rochford and Southend East and moving out into that area, effectively Southend growing. How do you think that will go down with the residents of those areas?
I think, as I said, we've got sufficient space within Southend-on-Sea, at least till 2030, to build necessary accommodation, houses, flats, whatever you might want to call it, to cope with the population explosion that's going on in Southend. There's a population explosion going into Rochford as well. We know there's homes being built in Hall Road. We know they're building homes in Star Lane. So it's not a question of no building, it's a question of how we build, where we build, sensibly build. And in 15 years' time, we have to, between now and then, we need to sit down, discuss what the need is in terms of homes, what we need in terms of education, what we need in terms of the infrastructure, the hospitals, and everything else. Instead of cutting on our national health and adult social care, we need to grow and fund it properly. And I've explained how we can do that without borrowing, without saying to central government, we need. What we do need from central government is the fact that they will allow us to do the sort of ideas that I've got. I've already spoken and written to Theresa May when she was first became Prime Minister. I've spoken to her housing ministers, I've spoken to her officials around ideas, and a lot of the ideas that I've spoken them to are in their housing white paper. And one of those, of course, is the rent to buy method, and of course charging developers that don't build out on the planning permissions that they've already got. So if we do that, 2 years you don't build it, we're going to start charging you council tax. They will build, and we've got the property, we've got the land, we've got the planning permission already settled out there.
Ron, one of the biggest issues, as we all know, coming into Southend, anyone who tries to drive around Southend, are the roads. And some of the decisions that have been made with regards to highways are widely derided. More cars, more people on the road, more schemes that people don't like. What do you think you can do about that? Because there's no parking in Southend, is there, really, to speak of?
No parking. Well, you can park, but it's expensive. I think
You can't on a decent sunny day.
you can because East Beach car park is virtually empty. Mapping Way car park is virtually empty. Shoebury Common car park is virtually empty. People seem to
On a busy sunny
on a busy sunny day. Yes, they're empty. People tend
I
to
think they're all parking in the Lees.
They all seem to want to park very close to the seafront. You don't blame them for that, but we have to be smart. And again, we started the transformation of signage so that it directs visitors to the town to car parks that are empty and underused, to make sure that they can be used rather than clogging up. And we've all seen the city beach area on a hot sunny day where you just got standstill. Well, we've got to be wise, we've got to be sensible. There is car parks north of the railway line that are not being used. The car park at the Civic Centre, for instance, the car park by the old library, the university car park, the car parks, Tyler's, the Queensway, Warrior Square, all those car parks are underused. We just got to be, if you like, wise in how we direct visitors to the town and say, let's have a cheaper car parking cost at the Civic Centre car park, a couple of hundred car parking spaces.
It's not just about car parking, is it, Ron? It's about moving around the town.
Well,
it can be very, very difficult to move around Southend.
Well, that is why we need to make sure the infrastructure starts to be developed in the way that we do. We've done the improvements to Progress Road, the Tesco roundabout. We're doing Kent Elms, although that might be a disaster. They've taken too long over that. The Bell, Cuckoo Corner. Those improvements are to help flow a little bit. But part of what I would like to see, the government, and again knocking on the government door, is to say, annual season ticket holders, why don't we offer them tax relief on all their ticket holders? Encourage people to move and use public transport. Now, if you did that, that will release space and put people back onto public transport and take out some of that congestion. Our MPs get free travel. I will pay my own travel. I won't charge expenses. I will not do overnight accommodation expenses. I will come every night, like all the commuters in Rochford and all the commuters in Southend. We pay our own fares. Why do MPs get it for free? They take the job. If you don't like it, then don't take it.
Again, that's something that it's very, very difficult to influence unless you're part of a larger grouping.
No, you say that. It's not about being part of a party. It's about having the right ideas to serve residents, and that's what it's all about. It's serving residents. If you're only going to serve a party, you don't achieve anything because they expect you to put your hand up. They expect you to vote the way they want them to vote. But
a big part of being a member of Parliament isn't just about representing your local community, it's also about lawmaking and being part of the process. And there are lots of committees that members of Parliament try to get themselves onto. Some of them are quite influential, like Foreign Affairs or Defence. It's very difficult when you're on your own to get one of those influential positions unless you're part of a larger grouping.
Yeah, but the thing is...
And you're not averse to being part of a larger grouping. I mean, you've joined together before with other independents to form a group.
We have, and we are a group, but we're independent of one another as well. The beauty about being independent, and you said it yourself, you need to make sure you can negotiate with your other councillors, your other politicians, to say, what about this idea? Can we do this? Can we do that? And being leader of Southend Council, working with the Labour group, the Lib Dems, the ex-UKIP councillors, the 8, 9, 10 independent councillors, I was dealing with lots of individuals to make sure that the policies suited everybody. It's through negotiation, it's through understanding their concerns for their residents and understanding what we can then do to make sure that policies suit everybody, not just one group or anything. And I couldn't do that. I could do that, and I offered it to the Conservatives. I asked the MPs to come and talk to me, and for 2 years they shunned. didn't want to know because I was not a Conservative member of Parliament or member of the council. What a silly thing that is.
How much more difficult will that be, though, once you get into the Houses of Parliament where you're working with people from not just your area but from all over the country, each one of them pushing their own agenda and their own ideas?
I've worked with all MPs. I've worked with Rebecca Harris, with Mark Francois, with Jackie Dole-Price, all willing to talk and come forward. I've got funding from Baroness Kramer when she was in transport. I'm an independent, but I talk to these people, I can talk to MPs, I can talk to ministers, because it's about being sensible policies, sensible ideas. And I don't care if anybody pinches an idea of mine. It's about what's best. If it's a good idea, let's share it. Don't hold it back.
Ron, one of the main concerns of people is Brexit. And we know that Southend, both Rochford and Southend East and Southend West, voted largely in favour of Britain leaving the European Union. How do you feel about Brexit?
I feel the people that voted have voted to leave. We should respect that view and we should move on. What I will do is make sure that I support whatever government is in place to make sure we get the best deal for the country, but also the best deal for Rochford and Southend East. It's no point in just saying, oh, we've done the job. We haven't. There's a lot of negotiations to take place now, and we've got to make sure we're on top of that, make sure we're aware of what's going to happen, and make sure we get the best deal possible for Rochford and Southend.
Ron, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you this morning. I hope you've got everything out of this interview that you wanted. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
Just that people who know me know I achieve, and I will achieve. I'll achieve for Rochford, I'll achieve for Southend, and I will achieve up in Westminster. And the best bit is my wife works up in Westminster and we can meet for lunch every day.
It's been really nice to meet you, thank you.
I'd just like to add, finally on this, is that I don't believe in left politics or right politics. What I do believe in is it right or is it wrong? And if it's right for residents, then I will support it. And if I believe it's wrong, there's no way I will support it.